sticking with you. Don't come in there. If you don't hustle with me from the beginning, oh what a shame. Why do you want me to fail at the end of the day? Don't come in there. If you don't hustle with me from the beginning, oh what a shame. Why do you want me to fail at the end of the day? You only know my name, you don't know my story. Oh no, no, no. Oh no, 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 no. Ask me also for the paper, and I put.
Let's go. I really got the feeling today that everything is going my way. Now this is what I'm talking about. Every time I see your smile, it makes me shout. Let's go! Let's go! Nothing's gonna stop us today. Get on the bus or get out the way. We're cruising with the radio on. So turn it up to 10. Here comes our favorite song. Let's go! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go!
Yes, let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good dawn, wherever you find yourself on the continent. I'm yours truly, Samuel Adrani, bringing you another dosage of your favorite weekly power platform show on the continent. I am again yours truly, Samuel Adrani. In today's episode, we have an amazing gentleman, someone who does crazy visuals. I mean, he takes time to, create visuals that speak to you, visuals that entice you, visuals that captivate and call you. That's the person we have on the show today. And when we come back from our very short montage, I will introduce this person and then we're going to have some fun. So if you are someone who wants to create good visuals with your Power BI and actually know which visuals to use for what data set, well, stick and stay with us when we come back for this episode of the Power Series. Yep, awesome. If you joined me earlier on, you would realize that I was actually playing a music or a soundtrack from Stone Boy. Yes, it was deliberate because someone, said I had something about me today that, made me play that particular song. It's the title is My Name from Stoneboy. Reason being that a lot of people do not know how far or how way back we go and where we've come from in the tech space. And people don't take time to learn about who this person or who these people are and what they do. So that's why I deliberately play that music. But that's just by the way. And before we get into it, let me get my drum roll going. I'm sure you can hear that. And let me get my clap offering. And let's welcome to today's show, Mr. Thomas Verstappen. Charlie, Thomas, what's up? Welcome.
Oh, cool, boss. And thank you.
It's been like forever since we met physically after the boot camp and the other session. Not really met in person. Get this. So here we are here today to have some fun. Ready to share some of your visuals for us. How have you been?
Everything is fine, boss. Everything has been smooth for me, with the exception of the COVID-19 and other stuff that it came with. But apart from that, everything is okay.
Awesome. I mean, we all have been, been trying to be innovative about this, trying to use different media, to get our stuff out there. When we talked about this, you're like, we have to do another a virtual event. I was like, yes, there's a lot
Yes,
in the
yeah.
pipeline. Yeah, so definitely that's going to happen, and we're grateful that you're sharing your time with us today. So people want to know, as always, who is Thomas Festus? A little about yourself.
Okay, so where should I start from? Okay, so I'll start off with my current. So currently, I'm actually working with Zenith Bank Ghana
Okay.
in their finance team. So what I do is about these dashboards and then visuals, how they can leverage these powerful tools like Power BI to
Yeah.
tell story with their financial data. And then apart from that, I'm also a chartered accountant as well. And then I'm also a financial modeler and then data analytics. So most of the time, as you
Yeah.
can confirm on LinkedIn and other places, I try to share this kind of
Yeah.
stuff to
Yeah. Yeah.
motivate other folks about some of the
Yeah.
power of Power BI and then
Yeah.
Excel.
Yeah.
Yes. So briefly, that's about me.
Was it
Yes.
so one of the things that so for those who don't know, I actually just connected with Thomas on LinkedIn. When we were putting together the power platform user group, I was like, this guy is doing like an amazing thing, and I just been seeing him on LinkedIn. um was it like accounting or data analytics? Was it something that you wanted to do, like, growing up? Was it something that you really wanted, or it was just by some coincidence or by fate? What was it?
Oh, okay. Yeah, so it all started on campus when I was a level 100 student. So I attended an Excel training. But before then, back in SHS, we did introduction to Excel and these office applications.
Yeah.
So I go for that training. So that's when I realized the power of Excel. So that's when I started spending my time to look at how to analyze data and other things. So along that, I realized that my passion has really come into data analytics. So through learning Excel and then using Excel, then that's when I got to know Power BI when it was first introduced. That's when I
Ah,
got to know Power BI. So I looked at some of the things that I use Excel to do and look at how
how
Power
you
BI
can.
has made the whole thing easy and very fancy, especially with the interactivity. That's one thing that really got my attention in the first instance, the interactivity with some of the visuals. So from there, I've been doing that since on campus till the time I came out of school. So when I came out of school, I realized that some of the folks are now getting to know Power BI. Then I
Yeah.
decided, okay, let me also go in and then show some of the things that they can do with Power BI so that they can
Yeah.
also see the power that is behind Power BI
Power
and then they
BI.
can also leverage it. So most
Yeah.
of the time, most people think that Power BI is for data analysts, and so I try to bring in my accounting and finance
Yeah.
concept into the whole thing so that they will see that it's not only for data scientists or data analysts, but
Analyst.
even if you're an accountant or into finance, you can leverage that one, especially when it comes to financial reporting and other things. Most of the time, we use Excel to do those kind
Yeah.
of stuff, but I show them how we can leverage all the tools so that we'll be able to develop some dynamic reports and other things.
Awesome. Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
So just from a layman. Oh, welcome,
Okay.
Mariano. Mariano is one of my MVPs, one of my bosses. So thank you for joining us again today. So from a layman's perspective, do I need to know Excel to do Power BI?
Okay. Um, Not really, but if you have extra background, it's going to help you a lot. If you have
Okay.
extra background, it's going to help you a lot because we know Power BI is not like a database where you can store the data. It's all about connecting to multiple data sources. So some of these data sources may be Excel, Access, or any database that you are using in the company. So if you have extra background, it's going to help you a lot to appreciate some of the things that we do in Power BI. For example, if you take the DAX language or expressions, we have some of the extra formulas or functions already in there. So in that
Yeah.
case, if you have the Excel background, you go in there. Nobody needs to teach you how those functions work. But because of
Yes.
your basic knowledge in Excel, you can use that one to replicate those kind
Some
of
of the
stuff that you do in
functions.
Power
Yeah.
BI. So actually, I recommend that at least get an Excel background. It's going to help you, and it's going to shorten your learning curve. Because
Ah.
personally, nobody taught me how to use Power BI. But because of my background in Excel, I was able to go into it and then
Yeah.
look at how I can also use it. So when
Use
you
that.
have Excel background, it will go a long way to shorten your learning curve. Yes, but we have seen people who are using it without extra background, depend on
Yeah.
the data source that the company is using.
To using.
So it's not
Okay.
everybody, yes, who is using Excel to connect with Power BI. But if you have it, it will go a long way to help you to learn some of the concepts easily. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome, awesome. Mariano says the Power BI is the best financial reporting tool ever, and I said that is it. Period. No argument. Argument done. But let's talk a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about your your journey into technology or your journey into all these things. The reason why I like to touch on this part of the show is I believe that our stories encourage and motivate others who are feeling at this point that they can't make it, or they don't
Okay.
have what it takes. So I usually try to let my guests share some challenge they had coming into the world of tech and how they overcame it, just as an inspiration for others to follow. So if you can just share
Okay.
that something little before we jump into what we're going to do today, I will really be grateful.
Okay, so personally, I don't have any tech background. I have not been to any training school or IT school. I'm straight like from school. I'm accounting throughout university.
Yeah.
So I started doing business, going to UCC to do accounting. So I don't have any tech background. So level 100, I got my PC. So the first application that I learned how to use is Excel. And right now, I know how to use Excel plus Tableau plus R plus SQL and then plus Power BI. And all these things, I learned them on my own.
That was
Nobody
awesome.
taught me. I've not been to any training school. So one thing is you just have to get a passion to learn.
Yeah.
And one thing that really helped me in all this journey is because of Excel. One thing I always talk to people about Excel is that it's not only teaching you about how to use it, but you
Yeah.
can easily zoom into any application or any software that you want to learn. So right now, there's no language that I want to learn that I wouldn't be able to learn. If I have the passion to learn, I'll
To
be
learn
able
it.
to
Yeah.
learn it without anybody teaching me how to learn it. So the only thing you need is passion. You don't
Yeah.
need to have a tech background because now, if you look at the way the world is going, you don't need to be a tech guy before you use technology to solve problems.
Exactly. Yeah.
So in your particular field that you are in, you can look at how you can use that particular tool to solve a problem in that particular field. So me personally, with all these tools, I use them in accounting and finance related tasks or
Yeah.
jobs. So in my company, for example, we are looking at how we can automate our business processes.
Process it.
So I'm looking at using VBA and then Power Automate to do those kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And all
Yeah.
these things, I learned them on my own. So the only thing you need is the passion. You don't need to
Passion.
have a tech background because me, I've not been to IPMC or any of these companies.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
just learn everything on my own. Yeah, so
Yeah.
the only thing is you have to get the passion and have the time to practice a lot. And
I
one
mean,
thing that also helped me was teaching people or sharing my knowledge. Yeah, that's
exactly.
one thing that really helped me. Yes. So if you're able to share your knowledge, the thing becomes part of you. So right now, even if you wake me up at any point in time to ask me
Yeah.
any question relating to Power BI or Excel, I'll be able
Yeah.
to help you out. Yeah, because I like sharing my knowledge and then experience with others. Yes.
Well, that's you heard it from him. That's the underlining thing. Coincidentally, this week there was a trend on Twitter, something about when someone got their first laptop, and in programming or in
Okay.
technology, and I was saying that I never had a laptop. I never had a computer until I got to, I think, second year in the university. That's when, like,
Okay.
one of my foster mothers loaned me one of her old machine, and I use that machine to do pretty much like a lot of my first gigs and all that until today that I own. So, and I mentioned in that post that it's not about having a computer, it's passion, dedication, and that enthusiasm to want to learn. And like you've said it
Yeah.
all. Once you have the passion to learn, and also like you say, see, the key thing people forget is sharing, sharing,
Yes. Yeah.
sharing,
It's very
because a lot
key.
of
Yeah.
people are in the space, they do these things but they find it difficult to share, like even to go and speak or to share. But one thing they don't realize is that the more you do that, the more you get good at it, you get better at it. I mean, that's awesome. That's food for
Yeah.
thought from the man himself. So we're talking about visuals today, right? There's something I noticed, the very first time I saw it, I noticed that you pay particular attention to the visuals you create in Power BI. Like, you are very particular and meticulous about it. Why? Like, what's like the motivation or the drive?
Okay. So one thing about these visuals and other thing is that in the entire analytical journey or the analytical process, when you are doing your data analysis, getting the data and then working and
Yeah,
everything, the only part your audience or other people get to know your work is through your visuals or your report or your dashboard. We don't
yeah,
see the kind of connections that you did. We don't care about the modeling that you did. People don't see the analytics behind everything. The only thing they get to see is your visuals.
yeah,
You get that's the final product. So it's just like a company coming out with a product. We don't know what goes into the product, but we just feel the product, we use it, and we become attached to that particular product. The same way, when it comes to your visuals, you also have to pay particular attention to it, because somebody sitting somewhere doesn't know the work that has gone into whatever you are doing. So if you are having the story and you are not able to tell the story in a way that people will be able to understand it and resonate with it, it means that your analytics and everything has gone waste.
Yeah.
So you have to put effort into your visuals, because that is what management or whoever or your audience are going to use to make the decision they want to make. So you have to make sure that it's clear and people are able to understand and you're able to get your story across to them. So if you don't have good visuals, it means that everything that you have done is a waste. So the visual is the final product people get to see. So you have to pay particular attention to that. So that's why I spend my time to make sure that everything that I come out is accurate, is clear, people are able to understand it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, since you've already given the introduction, let's see what you have for us today. It's all yours. You can share your screen and let's get it rolling. Because I see people are itching. We want to see this. We want to see this thing. Enough of us talking already.
Okay, so let me share my Power BI.
So Mariano has already given me something to tweet about. He actually picked the, I'm actually going to tweet it right now. Mariano, thank you so much. Like you mentioned, if you can tell the story, you can understand the visuals. Awesome. All right, so let's give it all to him.
I hope you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So one thing about Power BI is that it has a lot of rich visuals that will help you to tell any story that you want to tell with your data. But one key thing that you always have to consider is the right visual for the data that you want to tell. Because if you look at the visualization pane here, we have a lot of visuals. But many of the folks, we think that these visuals are there for variety, that we can use them any way we want to use it, because we have to make sure we are using different visuals for different things. But these visuals have a reason behind them. So here I'm going to share with you some four main categories of these visuals that you can use at every point in time. And one thing is that as analysts, you know your story. Power BI doesn't know your story. So you know your audience, you know what resonates with them, you know the communication that you want to put across. Power BI doesn't know that. So it means that when it comes here, Power BI wouldn't be able to help you if you pick the wrong visual. So here, if I pick any wrong visual for any particular data, Power BI is not going to prompt me that this visual is wrong. But it's up to us to know the kind of visuals that we have to use at every point in time. So in choosing your visual, you have to think about your audience, the people you want to communicate that visual with, or the people that you are targeting. Then you also have to know the story that you want to tell. Then finally, you also have to decide how you want to tell that particular story. And that will influence the selection of the visual that you choose. So here I have broken the visuals into four main categories, though we have other sections. But I'm going to talk about four of these visuals. So the first one will be the comparison, that we have some of the visuals that we use to compare values over time, that are used to compare values. Okay, so if you have any data that you want to help your audience to be able to compare, then these are the kind of visuals that you can use to help in communicating that. So one of the visuals that we use in comparing is the column chart. It's a column chart. So this is a very simple chart, and it's one of the oldest visual that we have seen so far. Yeah, so column chart or bar chart has been with us back at JHS, where we're looking at how we can use or draw a column chart or a bar chart. So bar chart is one of them that we use to compare values over time. So for example, if you take a look at this visual, we are comparing the total sales based on each customer within our data. So here quickly, when you look at this visual, it tells you that Urban is the one giving us the highest sale.
Yeah.
Okay. When you go to the next one too, you are able to see everything at a go. So this is one of the things that our audience are looking for, that they don't need to struggle before they will get to know the story that we want to tell. So when you use a column chart here, we want to compare values. Then we can use a column chart to do that. Then within the column chart, we also have different categories. Now we have a stacked column chart, and then we also have 100% stacked column charts. So all these things are for comparison sake, that we want to compare values. So if you take a look at this, here we have different segments that we want to visualize for each of the points here. So quickly, when you look at the trend, you'll be able to see what is going on here. And then on top, you can see for each of them. But because I'm using it for demonstrating purposes, I don't have the legend for you to know that this blue is representing this particular item. But if you hover your mouse over it, you can see that this one is representing the government segment. And then we are looking at the total revenue. Yes, so if you have values that you want to compare over time, these are some of the visuals that you can use to do that. So you can use a column chart to do that, or you can use a bar chart. Then within that category, if you want to visualize multiple legend or multiple categories at the same time, then you can use the stacked bar chart or the stacked column chart to do that. Then apart from this column and then the bar chart, we can also use tables to help us to compare values over time. So with this, after inserting your table, you can sort it so that everyone knows that this is the segment giving us the highest total revenue, followed by small business, followed by enterprise, and then followed by market segment. And you can see that these visuals are very simple, that everyone will be able to understand. So this is one key thing. Everything is about your audience, that we have to choose the visuals that will be easier for them to be able to interpret and then understand. So with this table, it's able to give us the information that we want to put across. The government is giving us the highest revenue, and then followed by the other segment. And now with tables, we can also apply conditional formatting to our tables. So here, if you want to add more value to this table, you can apply conditional formatting to this table. And the same way, we also have metrics, which works just like the table. But here we are working with rows and then columns within our table. So these are some of them. And then we also have the gauge. So the gauge is also used to compare values. But most of the time, we are looking at a target against an actual. So maybe the company's target is to make a revenue of maybe 100,000. Now, the year has ended, or maybe the month has ended. Now, we want to compare whether the company has been able to achieve the target or not. Then we can use a gauge to be able to help us to know whether our target is achieved or not. So if you take a look at this, you can see that we have the red or orange color here representing the actual. Then we can see a line here giving us the highlight of the target that we were working towards. So immediately look at it, you can see that we have exceeded our target. Yes, we have been able to exceed our target. So if you want, we have a story like this that you want to tell, then a gauge is one of the best visuals that you can use to put that story across. Then it also gives you the actual value here, and then we also have the target amount or the budget on top of the line or the budget line. So with this, when management or whoever is looking at a visual looks at this, they'll be able to get the story that you want to put across. Then the same way, we also have a KPI, which also works like the gauge. So here we are also looking at a budget against the actual. But one thing is that the KPI is able to communicate the information better than the gauge, because the KPI also gives us the percentage of the budget that we're able to achieve. Or if you exceeded it, by how much were we able to exceed the budget. So here it provides us with a lot of context under which we evaluate the measures that we are looking at. So if you take a look at this, this gives you the highlight of the goal here. Then it tells you that we exceeded the goal by 29 or 20%.
Okay.
And then aside that, it also gives you the trend for that particular item that we are looking at. So behind the scenes, you can see that we are actually moving up. So if you look at the last trend that we are seeing there, it means that our total revenue is going up.
Yeah.
So most of the time, when you have such situation, to pick between the gauge and then the KPI, I always prefer the KPI, because the KPI gives you more context to evaluate the measure that we are looking at. Because this one, we are aware that we have exceeded our budget or our target, but it doesn't give us how much we have exceeded our target. But here, when you use a KPI, you'll be able to see everything here. And it also gives you an opportunity to see the trend for that particular metric that you are looking at. And then the next visual that we have within this particular category, which helps us to compare values, is the ribbon chart. So here, if you take a look at this, we have the years on the axis, and then we have the total revenue for three main categories here. So if you take a look at this, it tells you that in 2014, within all these three categories, we have seen a spike in the total revenues. So you look at the last one here, which is representing the enterprise segment. You can see that there has been a spike in the total revenue.
Yep.
If you compare, so quickly you can see where the data is going, or you can quickly see the trend where everything is going. And apart from that, you can see something like a bar here.
Yep.
You can see a bar here. So here we are seeing two things at the same time. You are seeing the trend, and you can also see the height of the bar. So in all, it tells you that this is the total revenue for 2014 and then the total revenue for 2013. And aside that, it gives you the demarcations or the various items within each of the years and how each of them contributed to the total revenue within a particular year.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of things going on here. So when you have any data that you want to compare values, then you can use any of these visuals to do that. So you don't have to pick any other visuals like a map or any of these visuals. These are some of the simplest or some of the visuals that you can use to put that story across.
Interesting.
Yeah. So let me move on to the next page, where we are also looking at a situation where you want to measure change over time. So here we are looking at trend analysis. So you want to find out whether a particular metric or KPI is increasing or decreasing. We are looking at some of the visuals that you can use to communicate that information.
Yep.
Yes. So with these visuals that you are seeing here, we are looking at a trend over time. So here we use it to emphasize positional values of items over time. So here we have visuals like the line chart. So when it comes to the trend or changes over time, the line chart is the most popular visual that we use for that purpose. The line chart, because with that one, you can quickly spot the trend in that particular data or the metric over time. So here, if you compare, you can see that we are having the spikes around this point, November, and then we are also seeing a spike in October. So quickly, our users will be able to get to know what is going on. So if you have any data that you want to highlight a trend over time, line chart is one of the visuals that you may be using to do that. And then apart from the line chart, you can also use a column chart, which is also very easy to look at. Because if you take a look at the line chart, the same data that we are visualizing using the column chart. So here you can quickly see the spots, or you can spot where we are having the spike in our data. In the same way, you can compare the values over time. So this is one of the visuals that you can also use when you want to measure change over time. And apart from that, we also have the area charts, which also helps us to visualize trend over time. But one thing about the area chart is that because look at the same thing, like we are visualizing the same thing as the line chart, but look at the area that we have here to visualize the same data. So one concept that you have to look at is the data to ink ratio. So here we are visualizing the same data, but here we are using more ink because we are assuming that we are printing the whole thing. So the story that you want to tell, yes, we are printing the whole thing. So the story that you want to put across, here we are using a lot of ink to get that data across. But if you look at the line chart, we don't have that. But we are just using what? Yeah, we are just using the trend to visualize what we want to put across. So you can see that the area below the trend line doesn't make sense. So most of the time when it comes to this category, we don't prefer using the area chart. So I always advise people who want to visualize the data to avoid using the area chart, because the line chart can do the same job easily without you having to get a filled area portion to demonstrate or to put your story across. So most of the time we prefer using a column chart or the line chart to do it, because the area chart takes up spaces and then it violates the data to ink ratio concept. And then the same way we come back to the KPI as well. We come to the KPI. Now with the KPI, apart from the measures or the KPIs that they are showing, they also give you the opportunity to show the trend over time with that particular metric. So we can also put it into this particular category. But here the KPI is giving us more context under which we are evaluating that particular measure that we are looking at. So if you also have a data that you also want to show the trend, you can also use the KPI to put that story across. The only thing is to know how to use the KPI effectively. Then apart from these ones, we also have a line and then a clustered column chart. So here we have two visuals in one, or we have two items within one visual. So here in Excel, we call it maybe a combo chart. So here we are comparing two items at the same time. So if you take a look at the line chart, if you want to compare two items, it means that we may need two lines to be able to show that. So here what we want to do is to show the relationship or the trend between two variables. So in accounting or in finance related, we might want to look at the relationship between our cost of sales and then our total revenue. Yes, so if you take a look at this line is representing our cost of sales. And then we are also looking at the discount, which is represented by the column chart. So here we have two visuals in one item. But here we can quickly spot the trend in the data, and we can also compare these two values at the same time. Yes. And then we also have the waterfall chart. So this one has application most often than in the accounting or the finance related, but the other sectors or other industry, I don't know how it is being applied. But the waterfall is also used to measure the changes in the value over time. So here, if you want to maybe look at how our total revenue has changed over time, we can use a waterfall to do that. So if you take a look at this visual, we have the total here, which is the total revenue. So for this total revenue, quickly, when you look at it, you can see that a chunk of it was coming from 2014. First, we have a small portion coming from 2013. So here you can quickly see the trend or how the total revenue changed over time. So the waterfall is also one of the charts that we use when you want to measure change over time. So if you have any data that you want to look at how that particular metric or variable or measure has changed over time, then you can also use the waterfall chart to demonstrate that. So now let's also look at part to whole. So some of the visuals that we also have within this library, some of them are also used to demonstrate how individual parts contribute to a whole object. So for example, you can look at the people who are watching us. So maybe you want to find out the segments of our audience who are males and how many of them are females. So here we are looking at the total audience or our total viewers. Now within these total viewers, we want to see the individual parts of that total viewers that we have. So how many of them are males, how many are females? And there's the kind of visuals that we can also use when you want to put that message across. So the popular visual that we have within this category is the pie chart. Most of us are conversant with the pie chart. Most of us love pie chart to demonstrate that kind of information. So here you can see that we have a simple pie chart here where we are looking at our total discount. So you can see that we have this percentage coming from this particular category, and we have this percentage coming from another category. So here you can quickly see how the total discount is being distributed across the product sections. And the same way, the other part of this pie chart is the donut chart. So here the difference is that with the donut, we have a hole in between the items, but with the pie chart, we don't have that hole in there. Yes. And then apart from that, we can also use 100% stacked column charts or stacked bar chart to also demonstrate how individual items are being distributed across the individual components. But one thing about the cluster column chart is that you can look at different categories at the same time. Yes. So with this one, we are looking at how this value is being distributed across this product, and then across this, and then across this, and across this. So for each of these categories, you can see how it is being distributed. But because we don't have the legend here, you wouldn't be able to see how these items are being these ones are being distributed. Yes. But you can also use this one when it comes to showing how items are being distributed across the individual parts or components. But one thing is that when it comes to the pie chart, when you are using it, you have to be careful. Many of the data visualization experts like Stephen Few speaks against the use of pie chart. So when you are using it, you have to use it with care. So you don't have to, especially it becomes a little bit confusing when you have multiple or several items showing at the same time. If it becomes that way, it's very difficult to compare or to know how each individual items are being distributed across the whole. So here I can go there and then change this visual, and then we can look at it in terms of a different direction. Then we can see if we'll be able to compare the values. So I'll go to my data and then see if I will be able to find something I want to distribute this across. So I'll go here and then maybe let me check the segments here. Yes. So now if you have this visual here, for example, we have this pie chart. Now, if you want to compare the values here, if you look at the yellow one here, which is representing the channel partners, and then if you look at the one representing the mid market, it's very difficult for you to determine which
Yes,
one is bigger.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very difficult for you to compare. So it means that you have to take advantage of the data labels before you be able to put that story across. But the main purpose of data visualization is to make it easier for your audience to understand what you communicate. So here, your audience has to go a little or take another step before they will get to know the values behind these figures. And then one key thing also about the pie chart is that when the visual or the report is going to be printed, black and white is going to be a problem.
Yep.
Because most of the time we use the colors to, or we have a legend that will show us what each of these colors represent. So recently I saw one pie chart in Business and Financial Times printed in black and white. Then we are having the legend with the colors and everything
Yeah.
there. But
Yeah,
I
but you
don't know
can't
how
see
the
it.
person,
Yes.
you can't see which of these colors represents what.
Yeah.
So that at that point,
Yeah.
and we don't have the data labels attached to the colors as well. So the person is relying on the legend to communicate the story. Meanwhile, the thing has been printed black and white. So I don't know which one represents green or white or maybe any other or yellow or maybe green.
Yeah.
So you get it. So
Yeah.
when you are using the pie chart, you have to be careful. So most of the time, I use it when I have just two items on the pie chart that I want to show, just like this one. With this one, quickly, you can see what is going on. And then I also add my data labels to the individual parts so that when you see it, you can quickly see what is going on. And then another thing also, or another visual that you can also use within this category is the tree map. So if you take a look at this, we have a nice tree map here. It also suffers the same problem as the pie chart.
Pie chart. Yeah.
So here, if I look at these two, you can't really tell which of these two is bigger without relying on the data labels or the tooltip.
Yeah.
So without relying on the tooltip or the data labels, you wouldn't be able to tell which of these visuals or which of these item is larger or bigger.
Yeah.
But here, if I convert this into a bar chart or a column chart, you can quickly see which of these items is bigger. So if I select this visual right here, if I select this and I go then I change it to a column chart, you can quickly see what is going on here easily without relying on the data labels and other things. So when you are using the visuals, you have to look at the other options that you have that will help you to tell the story easily. So here, the same data, but in the initial stage, I was using a tree map. But here, I've used a column chart, or yes, I have used a column chart. But here, you can quickly spot the trend, or you can see the items, which is what's leading. So when you are using the visuals, you have to make sure that we use the simplest ones that our users will be able to understand it easily.
Yeah.
Yes. And then within the same categories too, we can also use the clustered column chart to also demonstrate or to see how individual items contribute to a whole object. So here we are looking at the country here. So we are looking at how the value for the country is being distributed across these three segments. So here you can quickly see the segment which is what contributing most to the total value that we have for this particular category. So you can also use this to also demonstrate that. And apart from these visuals, you can also use decomposition tree to also show how individual items contribute to a particular metric. You can also use the decomposition tree, which is one of the AI visuals that we have within Power BI.
Yeah.
Then we also look at some of the visuals that we can use in terms of ranking. So you want to rank objects or you want to rank items so that you can see which of the items is leading. You can also take advantage of the column chart. So you can see that throughout these visuals, you can see that the column chart and the bar chart are almost at every place.
Yeah.
Yes. So in fact, these visuals are really versatile. They have a lot of applications on how best you can also use it to visualize the data. And one thing about it is that people are familiar with these kind of charts. So when you use them, you'll be able to understand it easily. So you have to try to use simple visuals that your audience will be able to understand.
Yeah.
Then within the rankings, we also have 100% stack column. No, this one is not 100%. So this one is a stack bar chart, which is helping us to know the ranks within this particular category. So quickly, when you look at this data, you can see that this one is leading, followed by this, followed by that, and other things. Now, one thing about Power BI is that it's very easy for you to sort your visuals in the order that you want to sort it.
Yeah.
So here you can easily sort it based on the values or based on the categories that we have here. So here you can see that everything has been sorted based on what the values. So
Values.
here,
Yeah.
when your users look at your data, they will be able to see that this is the particular item that we want to show. So and then one thing is that if you want to emphasize a particular point within this visuals tool, you can select it and give it a different color, which will attract your audience attention to that particular value that you want them to look at. Then apart from these ones too, we also have tables and the metrics, which can also help us to visualize the data in terms of what ranks. So when you are using tables, it's very easy to sort your data in the order that you want to sort it. So here, if I want to sort this by total revenue, I can quickly click here to sort it. So if I want to sort it in ascending order, or I want to sort it in descending order, I'll be able to just click on the title and I'll be able to sort it in the order I want to sort it. So you can see that this one is in ascending order. If I want to go to descending order, I just click on it and I'll be able to sort it. And my audience will be able to see the segment which is giving us the highest total revenue easily.
Yeah.
Yes, without distorting the story that I want to put across. Then finally, we talk about correlation. So we talk about correlation, we are looking at how two values or items are related. And when it comes to Power BI, you also have visuals that will also help you to show that particular story that you want to tell. So, for example, you want to see how cost of sales is related to our total sales. Then you can use a scatter chart to demonstrate that.
Yeah.
So here we have two dimensions. We have the x and the y axis. So you can put the variables that you want to show the relationship between in each of these categories, and you'll be able to see the relationship between them. So if you take a look at this, it tells you that we have a positive relationship between our cost of sales and then our total sales, which makes sense because the more you are spending on your sales, for example, advertisements and other things, the more your total sales is going to increase. So here you can quickly spot the trend between our data. But one thing we also have to note is that when two items are related, it doesn't mean that one item is causing another item to change.
Yeah.
So we say that correlation doesn't mean causality. So here, the fact that two items, for example, we can visualize the relationship between rainfall and then unemployment. Now, when you visualize this kind of relationship and you can see that there's a positive relationship there, we can't assume that rainfall is causing unemployment rate to go up.
Yeah.
No. So even though there's a relationship, but it doesn't mean that one variable is influencing or causing another item to change, unless you have a solid reason to confirm that. So a scatter plot is one of the best visual that we can use when you want to show the relationship between two items or how two items are related. And apart from that, you also have a combo chart or a line and then a cluster column chart, which we can also use to show that. So here we are also looking at how our total sales and then our cost of sales are related. So with this, we can quickly see that we have a positive relationship, just like this chart here. So it's the same data, but this time we are using a line and then a clustered column chart to demonstrate the same thing. So if you can see that at every point in time that we see a spike in our cost of sales, our total revenue also goes up. So you can see everything here. So with this, when I quickly look at this data, then I can quickly infer that yes, we have a positive relationship between these two values or these two items. So these are some of the kind of charts that we can use in Power BI. So at a point in time, you have to know the story that you want to tell. And that will influence the kind of visual that you can use. So these visuals here are not just there for you to use them anyhow. You have to know the story that you want to tell, and then you can pick the right visual that you want to tell based on the category of these items that we have looked at. So if you want to measure change over time, then you can make use of one of these visuals here. If you are looking at comparison or you are looking at correlation, then you can use some of these visuals that we have looked at so far. So these are some of the visuals and how you can use them to tell your story.
Wow, this is like this gives you like a redefined, a different way of handling this because most people just think, oh, I can just speak in the visual to visualize the data, but this is giving us in depth into when and how when to use what based on what you want to put out. And you made a very key point that that's very important for us to take a note. If you are designing reports to be printed, especially if you're not going to print them in color, be mindful of
Yes,
which
yeah, yeah.
visuals to use
You,
because
yes, it's
you
very key. It's very key.
you print them with legends and all that, but we will not be able to see them. So
Yeah,
yeah,
to see those kind of
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
One of the questions people are asking is, okay, we've seen all these visuals, but then how do you create them? Like, how do we pick the
Okay.
visuals? So we have about like 5 more minutes. I don't know if that's enough for you just to create just one of the visuals with the data you already have, and then we can direct people to go, take the Power BI, up in a dashboard in a day program so they can learn how to do.
Sure, sure, sure. I'll be able to do that because
Sure.
creating these visuals is the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Creating the visual is the same thing. Just that you have to know, like, some of them have different formatting options. But apart from that, inserting them or creating them is the same thing. So I'm going to use that to show them how to create that. So I'm going to insert a new page here. So the first thing I want to do is to look at a line chart. So imagine I want to see the trend in my data. So
Yeah.
here I'll go to my financial data here, and then maybe I'll pick my date here. So I want to see how my total revenue has changed over time.
Okay.
So here I can pick the date from my financials table. Then I will go to my calculations table where I have the financial data. So this is where I have all my measures. So here I want to look at how my total revenue has changed over time. So I can just come to the table where I have that data. Then you can see I will have the check boxes in front of these columns or these items. So I just check it here.
Okay. Total revenue.
So when I check it, yes.
Oh, okay.
So now you can see. So by default, Power BI will pick any visuals for you based on the data that you want to put across.
Okay. Okay.
So after that, you can change it to the one that you want to use. So let me do a little formatting here because I have a date here is using the date aggregate. So I want to change it back to the default date that I have here. So now I have this one here. So this is the default selection of visual Power BI has given us based on the nature of the table or the data that we are looking at. So with this, if I want to change it to any of the visuals that we have looked at so far, you just select it. Make sure you activate it or you select it. Make sure that you have this borderline around the visual.
Yeah.
So when it's activated, you just go to the visualization pane and you can change it to any of these visuals. But as we have just looked at, you have to pick the right one. So here, based on what I want to look at, the line chart will be the perfect one. Or even this column chart is okay. But we have made it, initially I said we want to use a line chart. So I'll just select this line chart. And you can see that this visual will be changed into a line chart for me.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So with this, I can just drag it to resize it. If I want to make it smaller, I can also drag it to make it smaller here. So nice. So everything will be here. So when you select or when you have any visual, there are so many formatting options that you can do. So when you activate the visual, when it comes to the visualization pane, below the visualization pane, we have 3 options here. So the first one gives you the fields, which we are using to visualize this data. So maybe later on you decide that, no, I don't want to look at the total revenue. I can come here and then just delete it or remove it.
Okay.
So I can just remove it. And this time I said, okay, I want to look at my cost of sales. Then I come to the table where I have that particular data I want to visualize. Then I check the box here. Now we have changed it. So this time we are looking at the cost of sales instead of the total revenue.
Yeah.
You get it? So apart from that, if you want to apply any formatting to, you can come to the format pane here. When you click on it, we have so many formatting options that we can apply to this visual. So for example, if I want to change the color, I can come to the data color section. I click on it to expand it, then you can see the color for this particular item here. So if you don't want to use the blue, you can click on the drop down here, and you can see all the color themes that we have here. So if I want to change it to any color of my choice, I can just pick it here, and you'll be able to change the color here. The same way, if you want to add data labels to this visual, you can turn on the data labels here, and you'll be able to add it to your visual so that at every point in time, people can see what each of these points represents. Okay. So the same way, if you want to go ahead and insert additional visual, you just deactivate the one that you have already worked with. And then make sure that you select the page or the canvas. Then you can decide to select the visual first. and then you can define the fields that you want to use. So, for
Okay.
example, I can just pick this star column chart first, and then I can now come to the table, the field section. Then I can pick the ones I want to visualize. So this time I want to look at my gross profit, and then I'll come to my visuals or my financials table. Then I want to look at my gross profit over the countries. So I can just pick the countries here. So I can just select my countries here. And now I'll be able to visualize this across my countries. So there are two ways. You can decide to select the fields, and then Power BI will give you the default visual. Then you can go there and then change it.
Modify it.
Or you can start that, yes. You can start on set. You select the visual, then you can go and then define the fields that you want to use to kit that visual that you want to insert. So that's how you can use or insert visuals in Power BI.
Awesome. Well, there you have it, folks, from Thomas himself. Thomas, can you go back to your camera? Let's switch the view so we can
Okay,
have
sure.
some final chats before we call it a night for us and some other time in the day for others.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you can just activate your camera so we can see your face.
Okay.
Let's see.
Yeah.
And yep, there he is. Thank you so much for sharing this. I'm sure that it's giving a lot of people, much insight into which visuals to pick for the right visualization. And I'm grateful for your time. Thank you for doing this. I know this. We've been talking about doing some virtual event as well. So, but for all those who don't know, Thomas also holds some paid sessions and master classes and all that. So please follow him at CT Festos on Twitter and LinkedIn as well. So he has sessions, Excel trainings, data analytics, business and all that analysis going on. So make sure you follow him. Join one of his classes. I can guarantee you will love it. Thank you so much, Thomas, for today. Hopefully, I'll bring you back again so we can talk about some specific, data specific stuff in Power BI. Well,
okay.
awesome. So, guys, all too soon, we've come to the end of another episode of the Power series. But it's not over. Next week, we have another MVP coming back onto the show. We're going to be talking about robotic process automation, wind automation, flow, and all that. He's going to tell us some good news and some cool stuff you can do with this thing. So make sure that you join us next week for another session. But till then, this has been Samuel Drying signing off for the Power series. Stay safe, stay good, learn something new, have the passion, learn it, and share it for people to enjoy. Take and stay, and let's meet again.
Oh, what a life. Stone boy. After you make it, better watch who you keep around you. None of them are fake it. Tough time come, them not sticking with you. Don't come in there. If you don't hustle with me from the beginning.